Welcome to the Securely Yours podcast, brought to you by your very own cyber agony aunts. Me, Amelia Hewitt.
And me, Rebecca Taylor.
We're here to tackle the most pressing questions that arise throughout your cyber career and share some insights from our new book, Securely Yours.
Think of us as your very own mentors, confidants and cheerleaders. Your agony aunts for surviving your career.
Hello and welcome back to the Securely Yours podcast. Before we begin today's episode, I just want to say that all opinions of our guests are their own and not representative of the organisations that they work for. Now, with that boring bit out the way, Rebecca, would you like to welcome today's guest?
Oh, what a guest we have. A celebrity, a cybersecurity influencer, a lover of Costa coffee.
Can you guess who it is?
Can you guess who it is? Go on, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Nasser Arif. Sorry. I'm Nasser Arif. I am currently the cybersecurity manager for 2 NHS trusts in Northwest London. And it is a pleasure to be here with 2 people I really respect and admire.
Oh, Bob, that's nice, isn't
We're
it?
friends, which makes this 10 times funnier because we're like sitting across from each other being so professional. Cool. So today we're going to be talking about conversations and why conversations count in your cyber career. But before that, we have a little chat about our weeks within cyber, and recently we were all at InfoSec together. So I thought it might be nice to have a little check-in about how both of your InfoSec experiences were. Rebecca, how was yours?
Mine didn't quite go to plan. I was supposed to go on day 1 and I did not make it. So I went day 3 because why would you go day 2? So it was a great experience, but I'm not going to lie. I lasted about 2.5 hours and then I left. Yeah. I love the conference. It's such a good get together. And actually the speakers are amazing. But I just find it very overstimulating. It's all tall booths and lots of bodies and lots of people wanting to talk to you. And so, yeah, this year, I don't think I was mentally prepared enough to go to it. But I will say, I just want to give a shout out because why not? Oh, I met the absolute legend that's Joe Tidy there. And I swooned like I've never swooned before. He's just amazing. And I got his autograph in his new book. So yeah, that was special. And I loved that moment.
I did almost feel like I was like 10 again at a One Direction concert, the way you behaved. I actually think I told you to play it cool at one point.
I just think he's amazing. I just do. So yeah, lots of highs. Hopefully next year can be there a bit longer.
Yeah. Nasser, talk to us about your experience.
Yeah, so this year, originally I wasn't planning to go, but naturally I end up at it anyway. I love InfoSec. It's one of the highlights for me being in cyber. And not just from the professional point of view, at personal level, you meet people who are very like-minded, like yourselves. You can meet old friends, you meet a lot of new friends as well. And it's just the environment, it just kind of shows you what's out there. It gives you a much bigger picture of where you're working and where your place can be within the industry. So I really loved it. I love going around talking to suppliers, getting some nice merch as well, naturally.
Some nice merch.
I was in good behavior this time. I wasn't grabbing too much, Amelia. I'm mature now, so.
Debatable.
But yeah, I loved it. I really enjoy it thoroughly.
Amazing. I mean, the benefit of being friends with you is that if you want something from a stand but you're too afraid to ask, you tell Nasser and he'll just go and get it for you. So I'm now the proud owner of a lovely pink tote bag and a slinky that I play with while I'm supposed to be listening in meetings. So
I've got a light up pen, but I love it.
I have that.
I love the light up
pen. And I'm
pen.
really, because I was a child of the era where light up trainers were a thing. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Oh yes.
But like where you stamp and it lights up. So yeah, real high point of the last month of my life. But moving on from InfoSec, what are we covering today?
So, in this episode, we're going to talk about a topic we cover in the book called Conversations Count. So I'm going to start by just setting a bit of the scene and reading an extract from the book itself. So, In the world of cybersecurity, conversations really do count. Whether it's a chat at an event with a speaker who inspired you, bouncing ideas off a mentor on what to do next, an emergency call with a victim of cybercrime. Intentional, meaningful, and open conversations are pivotal in shaping your career and your next steps. We've had the words just network more thrown upon us since the dawn of our careers. But if you were to ask a handful of professionals in any sector what networking actually was, you would likely struggle to get a concise answer. Is it an art, a skill, a science? When seeking guidance on how to network, you can look at endless articles on conversation starters and body language, but understanding the science of networking could be the key to understanding what it actually means to you. What wise words. I wonder who wrote that. Beautiful, beautiful.
It's my proudest moment. That is it an art? Is it a science?
I love that. But it's valid, right? Networking is tough. Conversations, particularly with strangers, is tough. So, Amelia, I'm just going to start asking just a little question, a cheeky favour from you. Can you share with the listeners a little bit about the human biology and psychological factors that feed into that need to network?
Sure. So I actually, to let you behind the scenes, wrote about this in the book and don't own a copy of our book because I think I've given my copy to someone else. So I was just manically trying to download it on Kindle, which you can get it on Kindle if you want to.
All right, plug.
So that I could read out what we wrote. So to give you the whistle-stop tour of networking both in person and online, humans crave connection, and the drive to belong is really what's kept us from extinction. Our brains have adapted to this need with our prefrontal cortexes, which is the part of your brain that governs social interactions, releasing neurochemicals like oxytocin and dopamine during positive social interactions. So dopamine is obviously the one that we associate with exercising and getting all of those endorphins and the dopamine, the happy chemicals, whereas oxytocin is the love or the hug chemical, very often associated with mothers and their babies. So as I said, oxytocin, best known released between romantic partners, new parents with babies, or between friends. And it is that responsible hormone that keeps us together, makes us feel bonded together. And its counterpoint, dopamine, is the reward neurochemical. So like I said, we often associate with exercise or achievement. And it helps us to build those good habits by giving us positive feelings when a positive interaction leads to a positive outcome. You have to think of that as more of like the reinforcer of good behaviours. Mm-hmm. So when you consider these biological structures, it's hard to imagine why we can't network with absolutely everyone, because surely we're built for that and we're built to do that. But we know it's not that easy. Now, that probably tells you a lot about what you need to know about in-person interaction, but online interaction is a little different. And we know that the world of connectivity and social interaction is now found within LinkedIn, within other social media platforms. So there is a well-known concept in networking science, but human networking science, not computer networking, is by British anthropologist Robin Dunbar, who suggests that even in the digital age, our capacity to maintain meaningful relationships is limited, typically to around 150 people. And I think that probably highlights, especially when we think about relationships found on LinkedIn as a really key example, actually, the importance of prioritising quality over quantity in our online connections, which I know feels a bit counterintuitive in a world obsessed with collecting contacts. With that in mind, and with a little bit of our own recent experiences of networking, Nasser, we'd be really interested to hear your experiences of networking. Is it a love? Is it a loathe? Let us know.
Yeah, so for me, a couple of years ago, if you asked me the same question, I would say I have a deep hate for the idea of networking. And where that came from is it came from more, a lack of confidence in myself and feeling, what can I offer someone else if I'm networking with them? And early in my cyber career, so during the COVID days, when I went through a little bit of cyber burnout, just because of the amount of pressure we were facing in the NHS, I found that I need to bring myself out of this state. And the way I did that was by expanding my reach around my organization, finding out more about what other departments do, who the people are, what the challenges are, and just trying to seek that big picture to go beyond cyber. And I didn't realize at the time I was actually networking within my own organization. And I didn't know that was networking. Networking for me was, you go outside, you go to these formal events and meet someone. Not really, there's more to it.
Yeah.
And over the years then, I've actually started to really love the idea of networking because I don't see it as networking. I see it as an opportunity to learn more and I call it big picture hunting, where you go around and you just try and gain more knowledge. And in the same time, you can offer knowledge to those who are seeking it from you, who might be in the same mindset as you. So they might be looking for something you have the answer to, and you might be looking for something they have the answer to. And that's how I see networking now. It's just about sharing ideas. It's not about getting contacts, not about getting likes, any of that. So I've changed my mindset quite deeply, actually, over the last couple of years.
I love that. I love the reframing of networking because I think just the word networking can
people.
genuinely scare
sure.
people.
Yeah.
So changing it to actually suit what you're looking for, what makes you feel comfortable, reframing that conversation. I love that. It's a great way to put it.
I knew there was a reason we invited you here. Okay, so just so that you get the vibe of what we're doing, similar to the style of our book, we have asked our mentees and other women in the industry to share their most pressing questions with us. This time we went out and specifically asked for questions around networking, and in true agony aunt and now honorary agony uncle style, we're going to be addressing them and see what advice we can offer. So, Nasser, one question we've had is, how can I start a good networking conversation? I'm worried people will think I'm stupid.
Yeah, so if I focus on the part where people think we're stupid, I think that's quite key here. I think in cyber, the way I got over that is, and I used to feel like this all the time in my early career, all the time. Like I'd think that I can't talk to certain people because I haven't reached that level of cyber knowledge. And that stopped me from reaching out to people as well because I felt I don't deserve to talk to them, as crazy as that sounds. But it's important to remember, especially in our industry and in general in life, no one knows everything. No one's perfect. We're all human. As much as people might seem they have everything under control, it's not the case. You can guarantee pretty much as humans, there's so much going on in people's lives. And that's what brings me out of that mindset, because we're not stupid. If you're asking someone a question, if you're reaching out to someone, if you're trying to learn from them, you're doing things right way. And if they don't value that, if they don't appreciate what you're asking and they don't offer you something back, maybe that's not the networking you want to do. And you don't spend as much time on that. You go to people you're naturally drawn to who are on the same wavelength, same frequency as you, and who have the same values. That's where that natural networking happens. In terms of how to start the conversation, I think it's quite important to be authentic, to be yourself, and the main point is to be honest about what your intentions are. So, Amelia and Rebecca, you've seen me the way I go and talk to random suppliers at InfoSec. Okay, like Amelia, you wanted the spring.
Yeah.
So did I. And I could have gone and said, I'm Nasser Arif, cybersecurity manager. I'm fascinated by your product. What do you do? AI, everything, right? Instead, I went up to them and I said, I really like this spring, and can I have one? And I'm happy to listen to your pitch, whatever it is you're offering, because, I understand how this works, right? But I really like the spring. It's really cool. I could really use it for stress release, whatever it is. And they really laughed, all of the supplier that was standing there. And it just generated a natural, honest conversation with them. And they said, yeah, fair enough. That's why we have them. It attracts people to the stand.
Yeah.
And they started telling me about their motivation. We're not even talking about the product at this point. We're just talking about how, you draw people towards your stand at InfoSec. Nothing to do with AI, right?
Yeah.
And they started to explain the product to me. And I realized, this is actually fascinating what they're doing. Yes, it's not something I'm, professionally looking into at the moment, but I learned something new that day about, and it was about the how agentic AI can be exploited, how, and the threats related to that, which is very relevant. So I learned something new, and that, I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't being honest with what I'm trying to get from them. So I think that's quite key, is have honest conversations, be yourself, and remember you offer something no one else does because we're all unique. So once you realize that, there's nothing to be afraid of. Again, no one in the right mind will ever think you're stupid for, seeking guidance, seeking help, and just trying to, create a genuine connection. The right people will always appreciate that. And my focus now for me is to just find those right people and not spend time on the ones who don't value that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way out of that one.
No, I think that's extremely important. And my friend Jim Wright, who's also in the cyber industry, recently said to me, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
100%.
And that's something I found a lot, especially with CyberAid, when I speak to people with much more experience than me. And that's a form of networking and building connection is, well, I know way less than everyone else. And I don't know what I'm talking about, even though it's my organisation. But actually, there's a reason you're networking. It's to either impart knowledge or to gain knowledge from someone else. And so I think that's really important to remember. Also, everyone starts somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like, I might not be super clued up on AI now, but in 5 years' time, I might be an expert. And that conversation might look really different when I know a lot more as to now when I perhaps don't know as much. But the thought that anyone would feel fearful talking to me about anything or that I would be unapproachable, I don't like that idea. And I think a lot of people probably feel the same way. I do think it's important in terms of examples of good conversation starters. We talk in the book about sort of finding specific people you want to network with or reach out to. And we encourage people to think of their leverage. So I have before met someone and said, oh, I read your post on LinkedIn and it resonated with me because of X, Y, Z. That's already an in. And people love talking about themselves. That's human nature. If you can go to them, even with a common ground. So I was at the National Cybersecurity Show a few months ago and I didn't know anyone, but I said, how's your day been going? Has it been busy here? People then will go into conversation about something, really menial, but that then can be built into a bit more of an in-depth conversation. So it's definitely worth having a few conversation starters in your head. And if there is a specific person on a specific topic, leading with that, I think, is important. Rebecca?
Yeah, I think like you said, it doesn't have to be profound. You don't have to go in with some profound statement to cause an effect or to shock. It can just be a natural, authentic, like Nasser said, chat. And if you really want to get to know someone, own that. I mean, we joked about Joe Tidy at the beginning, but I did go over and say, I had to come and talk to you because I think you're amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to meet you. And I think you should be really proud of yourself. And that was just a beautiful connection that happened there and then. I think because I was honest and open and moderately fangirly, it went well. And hopefully, he doesn't think that I'm some kind of mad person. I think a lot of the things I preach as well to my mentees is the ethos of what is the worst that can happen.
Yeah.
If you go and talk to someone and they don't want to talk to you, they're just going to, in a polite way, but just jog on. Yeah. In the same way, if you message them on LinkedIn and they don't reply, you're probably going to get over it. It doesn't hurt. It's not going to do any damage. It just doesn't work out. And I think it's okay for that to happen. Sometimes the relationship isn't quite right. Sometimes it isn't the right time.
Yeah.
So, what is the worst that can happen by you reaching out and asking for a chat or just saying hello or telling someone you think they're really cool and you really like what they do? I don't think anything horrific will happen and actually might make a really fantastic relationship.
That's a great point. And there's, on a slight sideline, there's a lady on TikTok whose name I cannot remember who does rejection therapy. So, for example, she went to a fire station and asked if she could slide down the pole because she was
Fair.
It's to learn if you're someone that has a fear of rejection, especially social rejection, that the worst someone's going to say is no. I don't know whether she got to slide down the fireman's pole.
I hope she did.
I was about to ask.
I think she might have done because it would have been a pretty boring video otherwise. But
Exactly.
I think, and I think that's really interesting is that we often see rejection as failure. And sometimes it can just be that it's the wrong time, perhaps, to have that conversation. I've found that before at social events. Our book launch was a good example. I wanted to have quite in-depth conversations, but it wasn't the time. So I made sure to follow up. And talking about good conversation starters, when you're interacting with people online, quite often the "hey, how are you" doesn't get much of a response.
Yeah.
But if you go in and say, oh, I saw you talk about this thing, or we have this mutual contact, and I'm really interested in this thing you're doing because, always have a why, people are a lot more receptive to that because we've all been there. LinkedIn can be a bit of a place for some seedy interactions, especially as women. I've had quite a few DMs like that. But when I get DMs with clear intention, DMs, direct messages with clear intention.
Sounds like Love Island.
Should we go for a chat at the fire pit? Yeah, it definitely feels a bit more professional, and I feel a little bit more trusting towards that person.
Love that. And I think, yeah, entirely valid. But jumping straight on the back of that, because I think it feeds beautifully into the next question. Nasser, I'm going to throw it at you again. How do you turn a casual chat into a long-term professional connection? What do you reckon?
I kind of feel like from my part, I think you've both touched on this. These casual chats are normally the conversation starters anyway. So you go there, you can talk about anything you want with someone. And on the way I kind of do this is I'm not expecting really detailed conversations or long-term connections either way. It would be nice, but it's nice just to talk to someone sometimes. You see someone on the same frequency, same page as you go and talk to them, and you just let it flow naturally without the goal in mind that this needs to turn into a long-term connection for me. And I think that's the way to do it. It's when you start thinking about that end goal of, okay, how do I carry this on for this person to stay in contact with me? That's when it starts to fall apart, because again, it goes back to you're not being yourself. You have a plan in place, and oftentimes the other person will pick up on this. Like they'll realize that you're just trying to get to an end goal here. You're not interested in what they're saying.
Yeah.
You're being tactical. Yeah. Whereas if you're just being yourself, being natural, it'll flow naturally. Like when I came to your book signing.
It was the book launch. It was not an official signing. I just want to put
we have not become that person.
It was the book signing, okay? There was no launch. It was the book signing, okay? I was there to get my book signed. No, I'm joking. But the book launch, I came there not knowing who else was going to be there. I just knew both of you will be there. That's it.
Yeah.
I had no idea who else was going to be there. But I bumped into people I recognized from LinkedIn, from social media, and I thought, okay, I started to have chats with them. And I've developed long-term connections just by coming there, which I didn't think I would have before. Something that used to just be liking someone's post on LinkedIn turned into like good friendships.
Yeah.
And those friendships are the same friendships I now, I went to InfoSec for. Yeah. Because I can go to conferences and talk to suppliers anytime I want. It's not hard to reach out and get someone to try and sell you something when you're in the NHS. They do it anyway. Like we get a lot of those emails and phone calls all the time. I really don't need to go to a conference to get leads or anything like that. They come to us normally. I go there for the other part. It's the human connections, because I don't get those on email, even on LinkedIn to some degree. You can't beat that human, genuine, casual connection. And if that leads into something else, it'll lead into something else naturally. You don't have to wait for it. Yeah. Like, who would have thought I'd be on this podcast after coming to the book signing? Unofficial book signing, yeah. You couldn't make it up.
No.
It's crazy, right?
That's a good point. Like, that's an interesting point around how relationships and networking can be quite transient. So, for example, we didn't really know each other. I mean, we interacted quite a bit on LinkedIn, which is really helpful for engagement, so thanks. But we interacted, and when we were doing the guest list for the launch, because we already had that like casual connection, I thought, well, I'll invite Nasser. And then we met and obviously had a great conversation and, became friends. And I think that's really important, because if you get rid of the expectation that you're immediately going to like be best mates with everyone you meet, you can leverage those relationships when you need to, or when something comes up. And I found that when I became self-employed was that people that I hadn't really spoke to for a couple of years, who I had good casual connections with, actually I became a lot closer with them because they reached out when they'd seen the news, or I'd reached out to them for support. So I think it's about having an expectation that those relationships will shift and change dependent on what's going on in your life. And like with the podcast, again, when we were thinking about people we want on, we thought of you, because we thought, well, we've built that connection and now it's a good connection, and so we can ask you to be part of that.
Yeah, we can trust you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot of these networking type relationships, it can be for those of you that have seen the Nanny McPhee movie, where
What an odd reference.
that is, I use it quite a
wasn't
lot in
expecting
life, where she's there when the family need her, but when they don't need her anymore. Very Mary Poppins, like she moves on.
Yeah.
But she can come back.
Yeah.
But she moves on because you don't need her in the same ways. I think that is what these kinds of relationships are like. Obviously, if you're chatting with someone and you would like to pursue that relationship more, or you resonate, you really like that person, do follow up, do reach back out, do say, I really enjoyed that. Can we go for a coffee? Because it's still authentic and natural.
Of course.
And it's not transactional, I think is the really important part if you want honest, lovely long-term relationships. But it's okay for those relationships to switch up, to change, to ebb and to flow.
And do you remember, Amelia?
Goodness.
What did you do?
Okay, so before the unofficial book signing, there was another event we went to. It was a networking event about the cyber resilience bill. Now, at this point, I had been a fan of Amelia's content and Cybaid for a while.
Thanks.
Just found it really interesting, but I didn't know her. Like
Such
you said,
an influencer.
right? I had no idea
Yeah.
who she was as a person.
Yeah.
I just knew what her content was, and I was like, okay, this is cool, and I liked it. And we went to this networking event. Again, didn't really know she was going to be there, although I saw it on her page being advertised, and I was like, oh, this sounds cool. Let me register. Went there, saw her, and I know she saw me as well. We just didn't talk.
Yeah.
I don't know
You
what
locked
happened.
eyes across
It
the
was
room.
really busy.
It was surreal because we kind of knew each other, but we didn't. And I was like, okay, should I go and does she remember who I am? I always, like her content and stuff, but I don't want to come across as a fanboy.
Yeah.
So I probably shouldn't talk to her. It looked a bit.
You're not looking at a good
And
example
there's
over
other people
here.
around her. I was like, maybe she's a celebrity. Like, I probably shouldn't talk. I'll leave it, right?
Hilarious.
Yeah.
I messaged you after that to say we didn't get to see each other, but
Cheeky follower.
Yeah, and I was like,
Love
okay,
that.
because even at the event, I met a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And they just started talking to me, and we got deep into conversation about all sorts of stuff, which is non-cyber as well.
Yeah.
So and after that, I was like, okay, no problem. I'll see you at our next event, and I'm sure we'll talk at some point.
Yeah.
Because we follow
Cyber
each other.
is a small world.
Yeah, it's a
Such a
small,
small
very
world.
small world. And I'm like, okay, no problem. And we let it go. And then Amelia reached out, and I'm glad she did, because I was like, okay, she's a lot cooler than I expected. Like, I thought, she wouldn't talk to me.
That's hilarious. That is so hilarious that you thought that.
I was like, hey, there's a
seeing me.
reason. Yeah, there's a reason we enjoy each other's content.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
You both
very similar
resonate.
mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
And then from there, it became a natural connection. Again, we don't work together. There's zero work-related transactions needed, which is going on. Even with yourself, we don't work together. There's nothing work-related there at all.
No, we're just in a sphere where we all kind of get each other.
It's pure. The common ground is, we work in the cyber industry, but we don't really talk about cyber either, to be honest. Like, at InfoSec, we weren't really talking about that.
No, we just the majority of mine and Nasser's interactions are us sending each other AI videos of what it would be like to live in the Middle Ages via like Instagram and TikTok. And, that's... I'm not saying you're going to have like personal connections with everyone that you sort of meet and interact with, but it is quite nice where you also know professionally, for example, with the podcast, I can call upon you if we need that support. And it really makes me laugh that you thought I might not be approachable, because I have been told before sometimes my face gives off that vibe. But I'm very glad that worked out, because it's a nice way to build connections. But it, back to what we were talking about, there wasn't that immediate, oh, well, this person's there, so I must speak to them and we must form a connection.
No.
Like, it's all very organic. And Rebecca and I had this experience. We met 2-3 years ago, and we were not the closest in the group that we were in when we met. We didn't speak actively for a good while, but when I set up Cybaid, I remembered Rebecca was passionate about the same things I was, and I reached out to her. And we've obviously had a really chaotic year and a half together, doing lots of great things, but it's that thing of like, it comes in waves, and I think that's a really nice position to be in when you can accept that that's how relationships function.
I think that's a beautiful way to make a segue into our last question for this podcast. So Nasser, last one to throw at you, dig deep. What's the best way to network effectively on LinkedIn without coming across transactional?
For me, I think it's about letting connections come to you. So what I mean by that is if you have something you want to put out there, you do it without looking for any feedback, so any likes, any expectations. You're just putting it out there because you want to share your thoughts. And as you both know quite well with me, that's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
I have some very random content on my LinkedIn, which no one saw coming. Food pictures on there. You have Costa pictures, naturally. You have, pictures of my matcha. Whatever it is, it's random stuff. Sometimes absolutely nothing to do with work, or even cyber in general. It's just my life.
Yeah.
And I've put that out there, and I know there are people who don't like seeing that on LinkedIn. But again, I then don't like seeing them on my page. They can unfollow me. It's not a problem. It's nothing personal.
You're
I
keeping it real with who you are.
I put it out for myself. It's not for anyone else. If someone resonates with it and learns something from what I'm putting out, that's what the aim is. It's never to gain anything back, because I really don't expect anything back. I never have on platforms like social media, ever. And that's just been my mindset. It's never been for attention. It's never been for likes, even comments. They end up coming naturally. In the same way, when I'm trying to make a connection on LinkedIn for whatever reason it is, I actually take an interest in the person. I see what they're putting out there. I'll leave a comment, and it's a genuine comment, either asking a question or, sometimes, cracking some jokes and, sharing my humor because I can't help it. And again, I'm risking potentially offending people by using humor in some comments. But again, those aren't the people I want connections with anyway. I'm looking for the people who, like I said before, are on the same frequency as me. And I found a lot that way, because sometimes people reply to you and they'll have the same jokes. And you're like, oh, okay, this person's got a very dark sense of humor as well. Perfect. Let's, and that turns again into a natural connection.
Yeah.
So it's that being transactional is very easy. So you can reach out to someone, and my inbox on LinkedIn is full of offers. Oh, come do this. We're selling you this, and it comes across very fake.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of it. I really don't like those type of messages, because I know there's no interest there. The messages which resonate with me are the ones who have taken the time to get to know me as a person, not me as Nasser, the cybersecurity manager. It's me, it's Nasser.
Yeah.
Those are the connections I reach out to again. I'm not reaching out to the people who are just after contracts or just after, purely business networking. I want more from relationships. I want that human connection. I'm not looking for just a transaction. So it's important just to not have those expectations if you're networking on LinkedIn. Just be yourself, put yourself out there. Your tribe will come to you. Yeah. That's what I've seen.
I think that's so true. And I think, obviously there are people whose job it is to sell things, but people buy from people. And that's something that I've found is that when I'm working with a client who wants to procure a new tool, I remember the vendors I liked working with or who I had a nice conversation with. And I'm way more likely to reach out to them because we've just had a nice conversation as opposed to someone who messaged me in a very transactional way. Exactly. I'm interested, Rebecca, actually, for your take on this, because as part of the process of putting together Securely Yours, and actually as part of what we do with Cybaid, we are often cold reaching out to people, asking them to either talk about what we do or help us promote or to engage with us. And you're very responsible for that. You're the captain of that part of the ship, I would say. How would you say you approached that in a way that wasn't transactional? Because we were asking for favours, but it kind of worked.
Yeah, I would say when I've been reaching out to ask particularly for help recently with the book and with promotion of the book, so people hear and know about it, I think just keeping the conversation very natural. I haven't reached out to complete strangers. They are warm relationships, which I do think helps. And I think just being open and saying, would you mind? And giving people the right to still say no. I don't think you can force someone to do something. I don't think it's that people owe me or owe you. It's a would you mind? Would you be open to it? And then I'm happy to help you in the future with something. So very much a two-way street of if you wouldn't mind helping me with this, I'm cool to be your person to help you answer that or to write some feedback on your LinkedIn or whatever it might be. So two-way street is very important. I would also say a lot of the ways I've spoken with people, it's been through referrals and vice versa. So then helping those people I've spoken to elevate them into additional conversation. So if they've helped talk about the book, then in the future, introducing them to someone that I think they would get along with or that could help them or helping them with their own personal missions. So it's kind of a mix. We've been really lucky. Cyber is a small world where everyone kind of does know at least someone. So it's very easy to navigate your way through and find people that will help you.
Yeah.
And I guess that relates to mentoring relationships too, where I have often got people reaching out being like, would you mind having a chat? Can you help me? And I think, like Nasser said, as long as you're open and upfront about what you're wanting or what you need, as long as it's an authentic ask and it's not, will you buy my product? Will you talk to me about this? Because again, I'm not massively interested. I'm open to helping. Cyber, I think, is a beautiful industry where we do all kind of want to help each other.
Yeah.
We're aligned in that mission.
I completely agree with that. And I think something going back to perhaps what we said earlier about expectation is it's really important to note if someone doesn't react the way you expect them to, that doesn't mean A, you failed, B, they're in the wrong, you're in the wrong. We quite often go into conversations with an expectation of what the other person is going to say. And I don't mean this just in LinkedIn, I mean this like in life. But if that person doesn't really reciprocate the energy that you thought they would, that's fine. Like, it's completely okay.
Yeah.
You can move on. And I think often early in our careers as well, we do reach out to people and there is a bit of rejection with that. Sometimes people don't respond to you. I mean, I've reached out to so many, specifically recruiters actually, which I'm a big fan of recruiters, so, but who have just completely like ignored me or completely ghosted me. And that's okay. The people have competing priorities. And as I say, sometimes it's not a no, sometimes it's a not right now. And that's really good in sort of building those relationships. And we found this with asking people to write for the book was, for some people, it was just, I'd love to help, but now's not a good time. I have this going on or that going on. But you then know that in future that person is engaged and is supportive. So I think the overarching thing we're all saying with all of these questions is just being a human being is really important because, as I said in the beginning, people really crave connection and we really crave those like good reward hormones that come with having a positive interaction. A positive interaction might just be someone asking how your day was. It might be someone buying what you're selling or engaging with initiatives that you're responsible for. But I also think it's important that the groundwork is laid really properly because trust underpins all relationships.
I love that. And I do want to end with just calling out that where we've spoken about reaching out and being there as well. If you're noticing that someone is struggling and they've shared it in a relatively public way, following up with them, just making sure they're okay, that builds as well that foundation of trust. You may have never met them, but if you could be a sounding board and someone that's there for them, that in itself does form trust, but it forms a different kind of connection where you know that you've got each other. And again, where we're all connected in cyber and you can have people's backs without it being this big transactional expectation. On that bombshell, lots of quite difficult questions, I think, for this one, but enjoyable. Nasser, it's been a dream. It's been a dream having you with us. So thank you very, very much.
You're welcome anytime.
As we've said, obviously, in the book, conversations do count, networks do count, but they don't always come easily and they can be a work in progress. Don't push yourself, don't judge yourself, take it at your own pace. Like, again, we've said they can come in lots of different formats. They can be very casual, light and breezy, or they can be intense and they can be more urgent for a period of time. Whatever the method you choose, whatever the energy, just make sure it's authentic to you and that it's working for you. To wrap up, that ultimately, I love this bit, ultimately your network is your treasure trove of folks you value, appreciate and look up to. Your network is guarded, a respected collection of individuals who empower you to be your greatest self. So don't let anybody just waltz in.
Preach.
Woo-woo! So to end, if you do have any other questions relating to the book or a cyber topic, please do pop them through to cyberagonyaunts@gmail.com and we'll do our best to reply there, or maybe, just maybe, even cover it in a future podcast. Well done, team. Till next time. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support, please share it with others or post about it on social media using the hashtag CyberAgonyAunts.
If you'd like to hear more from us, remember to grab our book, Securely Yours, An Agony Aunt's Guide to Surviving Cyber, available on Amazon.
Finally, a big thank you to Matinee Multilingual for bringing this pod vision to life. Keep smiling, keep shining, and we'll see you next time on the Securely Yours podcast.